Okay, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our second session of the Lonely CEO series in partnership with Luminary on the challenges and opportunities of remote leading and the power of partnerships. Firstly, I hope you and your loved ones are keeping well during what continues to be a challenging time for so many. I'm Juliet Scott-Croxford, CEO at Worth Media, and I'm thrilled to have such a great lineup of speakers today, moderated by our partner and Worth contributor, founder and CEO of Luminary, Cate Luzio, along with our special guests, Wendy Cai-Lee, CEO and President of Piermont Bank, Kristy Wallace, CEO of Ellevate Network, and Bertha González Nieves, co-founder and CEO of Casa. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Juliet.
So leadership was lonely pre-pandemic, but the changes and challenges and opportunities of leaders and CEOs, and particularly female and minority leaders, have been heightened significantly over the past 4 months. The essence of this series with the Luminary and Women and Worth community is really to open up discussions about how top leaders are navigating the recent crisis, from managing the stress of leading teams through uncertain times to tackling the challenges of launching new products amidst a pandemic, to developing a more diverse and inclusive workplace and workforce in a remote way, and why empathy and open communication and transparency are needed now more than ever in the C-suite. So each month our intention is to bring together CEOs and business leaders and entrepreneurs like yourselves with different perspectives to help tackle how to lead from the top down, how CEOs can handle specific challenges, and the lessons to be learned from what to do and what not to do as a leader in specific situations. So without further ado, Cate, over to you. Cate's our moderator for the next hour, CEO and founder of Luminary, and she'll introduce the speakers and get the conversation started. Thanks, Cate.
Great, thanks, Juliet, and thank you to our incredible partner, Worth. So this is actually our second in the series. I think the article that corresponds to this, this exciting event actually just came out today. So check it out on worth.com in the Women in Worth section. And it features all of these three leaders that we are going to talk to. Now, I am biased here. Two of the women on this panel have become friends since I first was introduced to them. One is a new friend as well. We had an amazing conversation a few weeks ago after I stalked her, after reading another article about her in Forbes. But as Juliet mentioned, you have Kristy Wallace, who is the CEO of the Ellevate Network. And just so you guys know, if you've never joined one of these or a Luminary event, I don't read bios. I think it's really important for women to tell their stories on themselves. So we'll get to that in a moment. But Kristy Wallace, CEO of Ellevate, and also a great partner of Luminaries. Wendy Cai-Lee, the founder and CEO of Piermont Bank, the only woman-founded, women-led bank that has received a charter in the last 11 years that didn't come through acquisition. This is a de novo bank. So for someone who spent 20 years in banking, this is a huge deal. And Bertha González, the co-founder and CEO of Tequila Casa, the best tequila I've ever had. And I'm actually having some right now. So when you think of product placement, tequila is not a bad one. So thank you, Casa Dragones. This is their añejo, which is their first of their 3 tequilas, the first one they've had, and it took 3 years to develop since they've been around since 2008. So ladies, welcome, and thank you for everyone for joining. I see a bunch of our Luminary members and guests. I am going to pull in questions throughout this discussion. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. I will pull that in. And then towards the end, I will go to a formal more Q&A, but this is meant to be a conversation. So let's get right into it. So I'm gonna open it with Kristy, and it's more than just your story. You and I talk a lot about being a CEO and how lonely it is. And as a CEO myself, it is lonely. How are you feeling during this pandemic? So a little bit about you and Ellevate, and then how you're feeling right now.
Sure. Cate, thanks so much for having me here, and thanks, Worth. It's just an honor to be a part of this event. So I'm the CEO of Ellevate Network, which is the largest community of women at work. 150,000 women around the globe at different career stages, different industries, different functional areas. And so this time, which we can get into more later, has been definitely a time of pivot and transition as we look at how we best serve our community, but also understanding different needs and different challenges that we're all facing during this time. Prior to this, I actually was working at a startup back in the early 2000s when we had a previous recession and went from 150 employees down to 30 employees, and we built the business, eventually having a successful exit. So it's not my first time, but certainly my first time leading. And as Kate mentioned, being a leader can be lonely. It can feel like the decisions are on your shoulders. If you make the wrong decision, what does that mean? You're trying to navigate scenarios and situations that you may not have expertise in. And I have to say, just leaning on others such as Kate during this time has really helped me feel not so alone. And sometimes being lonely can be a great place to process and to learn, but being alone is not a place that personally I want to be in, because I believe in community. I believe so much in the power of the friendships and the relationships I've built and how that helps me be a better leader, be a stronger leader. So thank you, Kate, for being such a person to lean on during this time. But it's great to share all of my insights and learnings in this event.
And a little side note on Ellevate for those of you that don't know. So when the COVID happened, and we'll get into this, like Ellevate, we had to all move online and digitally. And Ellevate has done, they're holding over 80 events, virtual events per month across, Kristy, how many chapters nationwide?
So we have 40 chapters nationwide. And the big thing for us with our virtual events is, a lot moved online during this time, from workplace to social, friend gatherings. There was a lot happening. And so we really wanted to create something that was relevant and impactful, that was meeting the needs of our community. So we're continuing to do local events, building relationships on a regional level, which is incredibly important for connection opportunities and business building. We're also hosting roundtables for corporate executives, for entrepreneurs, for people earlier stage in their career, to really bring together the collective insights and knowledge of our community to help each other, to pay it forward, and to ensure that we all move forward during this time. So it's been a great practice and innovation in really listening to the community and seeing which space you can really serve a need, and in moving fast to achieve that.
Amazing. And well, we're going to get to that moving fast part to all of you in a moment. But Bertha, welcome, and again, thank you. I'm again very excited to have the anejo, which is hot off the proverbial press. But welcome, and I know you are right now in Mexico. So give us a little bit. I know your history, but I think it's such a great start. And I should have mentioned, Bertha is not only the co-founder and CEO of this amazing tequila brand and company. She was the first woman maestra tequilera, which is tequila master. So the first woman ever to do this. So over to you, Bertha.
Thank you, Kate. And I'm really excited to be here with everyone, and excited to reconnect with Luminary and with all of you here today. We are really in the tequila industry, and our mission is to expand the tequila repertoire through modern production and innovation. We're trying to push the conversation of tequila production into the future by using modern and sustainable processes, and prove that tequila can compete with other very well-established categories at the luxury end of the shelf. So competing with cognacs and single malts and whiskeys and so on. So I'm from Mexico City. I fell in love with the tequila industry in my early 20s. Well, probably a little bit earlier than that, but really from a business point of view in my early 20s. and figure out a way to build my career in the category, and then had the opportunity to become independent. I've always had the heart of an entrepreneur, and now we just crossed our 10th year anniversary last July of producing tequila for 10 years. So we are right at you know, right at our 10th year anniversary. I don't know how many entrepreneurs we have here today, but in this great call. But it's been an incredible journey, and just when just when you thought things could not get more complex and more challenging, we're crossing this challenge that we're all going through. So excited to talk more about all those items, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Great, thanks, Bertha. And Wendy, I gave everyone a little preview. I saw one of the comments that said, "What? Piermont is women founded." So we've got to do a better job of amplifying you and the bank. But tell us a little bit about your story and how you're feeling as a relatively new entrepreneur too.
Right. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Juliet, for having me here. And it's really nice to see so many faces because, you know, working from home, it's a little rough, right? Even for, I joke about it, even for an introvert like myself, after a while, we're human beings, right? So I think this topic is certainly very timely. It's not just lonely being the CEO. It's been, I think, lonely for many people. The shelter-in, I'm sure, has impacted people in so many different ways, right? Mentally, financially, physically. So, but when Kay and I spoke, I would say, 2 weeks ago, I was joking with her. I said, lonely as a CEO, I felt like it's been a lonely journey my whole career, you know, being in banking. So I started my banking career 26 years ago on the investment banking side. So I'm an investment banker by training, and the most recent 10 years has been commercial banking. So along the way, I felt every stage of my career, it's been lonely, being the only woman in the room, most of the time, basically, right? So I decided to build Piermont. Actually, Piermont is my second startup. So I had my first startup at age 24. I quit Citibank, dropped out of Columbia MBA school without telling my parents, sold my car. You know, the typical story. This was back in 1997. So you guys, whoever who's good with math can quickly figure out how old I am. But so anyway, so raised $12 million and sold it back to my investor. So this is my second tour of duty as a startup, as an entrepreneur. So my career has been a little unusual, right? I start with the big banks, JP Morgan, then I quit and to be a startup. Then I spend the next 16 years with large banks and firms like Deloitte. And now I'm back at it again. So the whole thing about Piermont is that not only is because seeing pain points of a female in financial services sector, seeing pain points of clients, primarily small to mid-sized companies, right? Like Bertha's company, I'm sure it's going to be, her companies are going to, when they get to the point where it's going to outgrow a bank like Piermont. But during the growth stage, they go through such particular pain points that it is so difficult to for larger money center banks to really be able to provide the value. So that's the whole idea, was build a bank that supports small to mid-sized companies and bridging that gap between a fintech and a traditional bank. Because the traditional bank just moved too slow and the rest of the world doesn't move that slow anymore. So it's really, we're here to bridge that gap. So that's what Piermont is. And obviously, as a woman-founded bank, we have a particular affinity in supporting women-led business. So I don't know how many of you guys are out there running your business and facing challenging times. I'm always happy to take a call. So.
And actually, that's very true, because I reached out to her almost blindly, and we got on the call, I think, 2 days later, and shared a lot of crying and laughing about our banking days, mine particularly. But Wendy, when we were on the phone and then as we decided to do this panel, one of the things that that struck me is with Kristy having a large part of her business in-person events, Bertha obviously relying on partnerships with liquor stores and hotels and in person. Your idea in taking what people think of as a traditional bank and really digitizing it all, where you're this mix between a fintech and a traditional bank. While you had to move your staff remotely, one of the advantages that you had, and for those of you that went through PPP, you know what a nightmare that was around documentation. one of the things that you actually had this super advantage is that you already had this incredible digital platform.
Yeah. So, you know, I was saying we had our birthday. Piermont Bank just celebrated our first year birthday on July 1st. And I had my first shareholders meeting. And what I said to them, I said, you know, as you all know, we did not build Piermont as a digital bank in anticipation, obviously, having the world melting down on us, right? A pandemic. But it certainly did help. Actually, we were one of the very few banks that were able to be fully functional without, frankly, not just impacting our operational efficiency, but also clients. So, you know, in my world, it's not just about during the pandemic looking out for my people, meaning everybody who works at Piermont, but really our biggest job was making sure our clients are okay. And this is not a pitch or anything, but honestly, as I watch small businesses suffer, not just through the PPP process, that's, you know, as painful as it may be, it was, I should say, that's still a phase. But watching small business and trying to figure out how to help them last through this actual financial crisis has been very, very challenging. So yes, being digital has helped a lot so that they don't have to worry about actually get to the bank. You know, we can still make sure that their business continue to operate because they don't have to actually be physically visiting any locations.
But I'll just add one follow on to that. And then I would love Kristy and Bertha, you to talk through around how you pivoted so quickly and the different nuances in your industry. But Wendy, when you think about the client side, you were already on this digital platform, but you're a startup. Like you just said, you're 1 year old, so happy birthday. But 1 year old and you're building a bank and you're building a business. And so your staff now, who was working at home, and you know, as a startup, you're building a culture too. How have you managed through that? So it's one thing on the client side, but then making sure you're continuing to build that culture with a new company.
Right. Well, so the whole digital, being paperless, being always thinking from the pain points of the client, that culture was there from day one, whether it was working from home or being physically on site. You know, we are located in Midtown in New York, in the city. But it was making sure that everybody was okay, meaning that not okay from the standpoint as an employee of the bank, but okay on the individual level. So 2 days after we went 100% remote, I personally made phone calls to every single employee of the bank. And we sent, then a week later, I sent a sweet basket, right? Personally sent it like a cookie basket, different things. You know, you get to know each other really well when you are building out a brand new company. You figured out what's everybody's favorite food, favorite snacks. So every little thing helped because to keep people's spirit up. Because at Piermont, we had this big pantry where we always stocked with food. So I said, okay, we're sending the pantry to your house. So to me, my point is that it is really, the tone is set from the top, whether it's at a startup or at JP Morgan Chase, right? So it really has to drive from the CEOs to say that, okay, we do care about our people. It's not just talking and preaching. It's what can we personally actually do in real action that shows that we care. So we did that along the way, in addition to your virtue, like happy hours and et cetera. So
great. And Bertha, you know, again, people, and there was a question that I'll get to later that came in prior to this, but people think of a traditional, great, it's a spirits company, it's tequila, I'll just go to my liquor store. That's one aspect of it. Your business literally changed overnight.
So yeah, it's really, really sad because, you know, the on-premise, which is restaurants, hotels, bars, nightclubs, it was overnight. Like those businesses shut down overnight. And the industry is made by people. So it's not only losing that business, but all the people that you know are in that business that are really like going through something completely unexpected from one day to the other. So from that regard, we've been very focused in really staying as close as possible to our community while we're still trying on our own to make our, you know, P&L work for ourselves, you know, while still struggling to figure out how to adjust to these or figure out creative ways to deal with this crisis. The matter of fact that you know, 30% of our business is with these incredible partners that have helped us give life to our product. in their establishments. It's a big part of like of what we're dealing with today. And in terms of retail, well, retail is also, I mean, a very important part of our business, 70% of our business. We have always been very close to our retail partners as well. So really staying very close and pivoting together with them into the online and the D2C platforms has really enabled us to be able to try and keep this drumbeat going in a time where I think April and May were very, very much uncertain, I think for everyone in this call. We really didn't know the depth or the breadth or the impact. Different industries reacted in a different way. And then when June came, we started seeing a little bit of more action in our business. And I think that the consumer today is really choosing what they're selecting, you know, what they're bringing into their homes, where their money is going. And I think that's something that is, we're valuing tremendously, that people are continuing to choose our product. We're staying positive. Our team, both in Mexico and in the US, we closed our offices in March 13. So we've been operating virtually since then, with the exception of our distillery. We were able to create a new protocol with comparisons with friends that we have in Spain and in Italy, create a whole new protocol for production. So we were able to produce 100%. Now we're at 70% of what we can actually produce because of the type of new protocol that we have implemented. But we're so proud of our team in Tequila Jalisco, how they've kept the energy, the positivism, the can-do attitude, and moving our business forward. And then the rest of our team that has been working from home. I think that while we're farther away from each other physically than ever before, something happened with this crisis that, you know, in order to deal with it, we just came one step ahead, more together than ever before.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to really hear and reflect on, because we all came into this crisis mode of problem solving and adjusting and figuring out how to actually go out and continue to build our business with our wholesaler partners and our retailers, and with also the realism of our on-premise partners suffering so much. So I think that we've all gone into this sense of urgency that we already had as entrepreneurs, but there's an acute and more angular moment that we're going through. So I think that we, you know, like everybody else, we don't know the length and we don't know the breadth. The only thing that we know is what we know today, and we need to play with the cards that we've been dealt with and be as smart as we can and protect our teams and our business and stay close to our community, because I think what has given us fuel and true emotion and passion is like what we've seen in the marketplace. And we've done some, I will stop talking now and then we can come back to it after, but we've done some great partnerships during this time that have enabled us to really be part of the community.
So before I go to Kristy, so just a couple of quick things. I think, you know, we were talking about when I was writing the article, one of the things that you said, and you mentioned that you're 10 years old, you know, still building the company, but someone would say, well, that's not really a startup. You know, it's no longer entrepreneurial because, you know, you're now a 10-year-old business. Well, actually, you are, and part of what you've instilled in the DNA at Casa is this entrepreneurial attitude. And that really, you said, brought your team closer together during this crisis. Right? Yeah. So how then do you go from we are, you know, fully operational and now we're digital, we're trying to continue to work with our partners, there many of whom are out of work, and I know you've mentioned the bartenders. You end up launching a tequila that has been in the works for 3 years in the midst of all of this.
I think that as an entrepreneur, there's the only one thing, that constant is the only, change is the only constant.
Yeah. So
you start like developing this muscle that you cannot get accustomed to it. It always surprises you though. It doesn't. but you're in this constant evolution of change. So I think that that has been a good thing, that we have had that to deal with this for the last 10 years. And when we were able to keep our distillery operating, and we were able to actually produce what we were going to produce, we were going to launch in May. We of course had to postpone that. Mm-hmm. And we thought we were going to postpone it till September. But when we were able to keep production going and do the export to the US and have the inventory for the Mexican markets, we are a company that depends on its sales. Right. So we had been working for these for 3 years. So the only option was to sell, right? We don't carry inventory. We don't build inventory from now. So we sell what we produce. Right. So we didn't see any other option than move forward. And I think that what was challenging is I feel like we're lucky that it happened into it and not 2 years into it, because we really do have incredible partners in both marketplaces. So we just said, well, this is what we have. We have the internet, we have our partners, and we have to move forward. And we decided to move forward and did every type of action, everything online. And good news is that, you know, the post mail is working, FedEx is working, DHL is working. So we try to do our work by getting the product to where we needed to get it, and really put the time in to tell the story of our company and the story of the product. And we're off to a good start. We're excited about the feedback that we're getting and the sales that we've been able to do in a short period of time. And we're just staying nimble, staying humble, and staying very attentive, and really hearing everybody. We've done more town halls, more communications than we've ever done before, and staying really close to the ground to make sure that we are able to shift and operate as nimble as we can.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit more about the sort of partnerships component in a minute. Kristy, we've had the benefit of being partners with Ellevate as Luminary for over a year now. We've done so many events together, talks, roundtables, and then obviously coronavirus. You've always had this digital capability, but so much of what you do in all of these chapters is in person and relates and relies on events. So how did you quickly sort of react and get all of these people around the country to say, okay, we're going to put it all online? And how did you continue to keep your community engaged?
Sure. So ironically, heading into 2020, our 2020 vision was really around developing our center space, if you will. We were doing 1,000 events in person a year. We had a long history of building out that product and some great success and impact there. We have our Squads program, which is a fully digital online peer mentoring program. We've had over 8,000 women go through that program. So we've really built that out to be a strong, ongoing, 12-week program. But it was that middle space of, okay, we can do the in-person and we can do the structured program, but how do you build connection digitally in a more organic, everyday, ongoing way? It was really important for us to figure that out. We know that our world is changing in ways that heading into 2020, we couldn't even fathom, but certainly around remote work, around working caregivers, around different hours and different, side hustles, which take up time. I mean, there's a lot of things that require our time and energy. And so we wanted to support our community in building connections and relationships in new ways and not just the traditional ways it had always been. So come March, suddenly that 2020 vision, which we were thinking, okay, how are we going to make this happen? What is this going to look like? Became, okay, we need to do this today. We don't have the luxury of time. We have to make it work. And in many ways, I'm just so impressed with our team. Everyone came together, really worked hard to make this a reality. I think moving all of our events online helped us to have a better understanding of the full scope of what we did. Mm-hmm. And then to really look at that in terms of how do we create structures, how do we create improvements, what are ways to make changes and alterations to really develop something new and develop something that's valuable and unique. I'm during the time, certainly our team was struggling on many levels. If they were working caregivers, you know, a lot of us were emotionally impacted during this time, health-wise, what's happening in this world. You know, the humans still come to the workplace and you don't get to leave all that at the door, at least not in my workplace. So is also, how do we support each other as a team? How do I support our team as a leader? And the biggest thing was, one, just being transparent. I was very transparent. I was homeschooling 3 children. I was struggling myself. So being able to talk to the team, frankly, about, okay, you know, we're here to support one another. We're here to really set us all up for success. That was important. When we pivoted to fully virtual, we were able to create some structures there where we reassigned some of our team members to working on some of those programs and products that were most critical during that time. It really kind of focuses what everyone's doing. There's no question about what the main KPIs are. So really it was around, how do we, you know, be relevant? How do we pivot? How do we focus what we're doing to best support our community and overall the business health and viability? By being able to really focus what people were doing and be a little nimble in some of those roles and expectations, I think it also freed up our team to be able to work in different ways and different flex ways. If it's, you know, childcare in the morning, or I'm working on things in the evening or afternoon. And that was really appreciated. Having that type of flexibility worked, especially in the early days when there were so many unknowns. And then finally, the biggest thing about the shift for us was the removal of some of those, you know, in between touch points between us and our customers. You know, I'm leading roundtables with our members. I've gotten to know more of our members in the past couple of weeks than I had in the past couple of years, because I was connecting with women outside of New York City, in Dubai, in California, and connecting with them on a weekly basis. Yeah. Our entire team was doing that. And by really firsthand connecting with your customer, talking to them, understanding what they need during this time, it allowed us to much better respond to that and much better deliver programs and products and services that are going to resonate and that are going to help our business not just grow, but remain viable during this time and into the future.
Yeah, and I'll ask actually all 3 of you to kind of jump in here. You know, we spend a lot of time, and of course we do, we run and lead businesses around the customer and the client, and whatever word you call your community, we call it a community. But one of the things that we know, and you've all alluded to it, is around your teams. And you're all transparent and direct leaders, right? You wouldn't be in the roles that you're in, I think, without that. You also show that vulnerability. I know, Kristy, that's something that you talk about quite a bit. I know, Wendy, again, being very honest with your team around where the bank is. Bertha, you've mentioned, again, this idea of being the transparent and authentic. One of the things that suffers during this time, outside of mental health and certainly your health if you've been affected by COVID, but for women in particular, and this is not to take away from the men, we thank you for being on the call and being supporters and allies, is visibility. Is visibility around, we like this face-to-face. And oftentimes we're told over our careers, you know, as Wendy, you alluded, you're one of the only women in the room, put your head down and keep going. How, as this transparently, as you are transparent leaders, how are you helping your employees just make sure that they continue to have that recognition and visibility? And any of you just sort of jump in, and then we can go through each of you.
I can jump. Oh, Wendy, go right ahead.
Go ahead, Kristy.
So I'd say for us, it's a few things. Some that we've always done, and then others that have become new during this time. One, we are an organization that is heavily based on peer support. I think it's really important to across the organization highlight when someone does something great, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a huge milestone. It can be, today I overheard Christina doing customer service and she had a great conversation with a potential customer. It could be someone really aced, you know, a webinar meeting today. Someone had a great idea in this conversation. You know, how do we really validate each other and create that that culture of support and recognition? So that's very important to us. We do it through a Slack plugin. We also have, during our weekly meetings, Eunice the Unicorn, where the entire company votes on who gets Eunice that week, and it's really recognizing the work of others on our team. I also, as a leader, became really evident very quickly how many people within the organization I don't see on a regular basis, that maybe we're not in regular meetings together, but yet I was building relationships with them organically in the cafeteria or at events, other touch points that had been removed during this time. And so for me, it became really important that I didn't let those relationships slide backwards. Certainly there is an aspect of, out of sight, out of mind, or if you don't see what someone does, maybe then you don't understand the amount of work that they're doing or the value of that. And there's no way I was going to let that happen. So I've really been intentional about, reaching out to others. If it's a quick Slack message, like, how are you doing? How's your weekend? Picking up the phone and calling people. Yesterday I was picking up the phone nonstop, just like, hey, I wanted to give you a quick update on this project, but I also wanted to check in with you and I want to see how you're doing. I've been trying to take walks more, and during those walks, like, who can I call on the team? Who can I check in with? To me, it's been really important because the workplace, again, it's about humans, and you have to continue to develop and build those relationships now and moving forward. And to me, that's what makes a strong leader.
Yeah, I think that I echo what Kristy said. I think it doesn't matter what industry you are in. It's a people business, right? When I started out in banking, I was taught that banking is a risk management business. But very quickly I learned, no, it's still a people business first and foremost. So when in a situation like this, where we're looking at a global crisis, that people part becomes even more important, right? So Kate, to answer your question, at Piermont, for me, it's about, so every morning there's a 9 o'clock standing call, and it's not even about getting everybody, all my direct reports on the same page, but it was really an effort to also check in on everybody. Because, I always say I have the luxury, also the pain of a 10-year-old, right? Meaning the luxury is that he's constantly a good distraction as well, because I'm not literally alone, right? I got to worry about making sure he's got his lunch, right?
Yeah.
Et cetera. So I found that during the pandemic, he became a luxury, other than being my son, which I treasure him, is that he helps my mental health, right? That's the normal part of my life, being the mom. But not everyone has that. So we do have, for example, whether it's senior management team or analysts who are on their own. They're literally on their own. They didn't see anybody, right? Especially during the shelter in that where you can't really go out. Unless somebody food delivery comes, they don't see another human being for days. So that's when we actually all took turns actually check in on them. Basically, not so much like, oh, are you okay? But hey, typically it's something that could be resolved via email, but you pick up the phone and call them via whether it's Zoom or Teams rather than just an email. So that was sort of a deliberate effort that we took, not just on my part, but on the part of the senior management team to check up on everybody. Secondly, is really about project. So speaking of exposure, is ensuring that even the most junior person, right, not just women, but the most junior person tend to be really overlooked during this time. Is to make sure that they are assigned or have a chance to participate in any projects where they still have access, for example, to me directly, where I check in on, hey, Andrew, how's this going on? How's the database, project going on? Usually, frankly, in the office, I would not actually need to do that because I see them in the hallways, I see them in the pantry, right, during lunch. But now I actually reach out to them to make sure that, they actually hear from me. So it's simple. At Piermont, it's actually quite simple stuff, but it takes just the effort from the senior management team, not just me.
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, one of the things that we've done at Luminary, we have a standing meeting on Mondays, and coming from a world of banking where we had, 30 internal meetings every single day and conference calls, I was very quick to say, I'm having one meeting a week and then we can all do our own thing. But when this happened, to your point, Wendy, I knew that we had staff members that had children. I knew some were alone, some that had to leave the city. And so on Fridays, we have a standing meeting, and it's only about what everyone's looking forward to the weekend. So it's not about the business. If there are big updates, I'll do that, but it's really about just the team feeling good, and that there's that support versus it's always all about business and saving the company and we've got to keep going forward. So I think what both you and Kristy are doing is that. And Bertha, I know you, again, as you mentioned, this has brought you and your teams closer together, but you're also spread out, not just in the US, you're also in Mexico.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that what we did, one thing that I think was very important, we're talking about visibility. I think at least in our company, we have a good balance between women and men in throughout the organization. And I think that one of the things that we decided to do right when the crisis hit was we decided to do an employee survey. And we gave it our own name. We called it Employee Voices. It was done through a great modern process that we chose. And we did it for all the different, every single person in our team, to hear back from our team in general, to get a sense of it was not only about the crisis, it was really about the organization. Yeah. And so we did that survey, and with that survey, we analyzed it, and that together with the executive team, we created a new line of work that was, that really is about recognition, performance management, work-life balance, like 4 different areas that we decided to focus on the feedback that we got. And I think apart from the decisions that we took prior to that, try to keep the team together, protect the team, cut areas where we should cut rather than actually really having to, we're a small company, so we have challenges than others. So we didn't have to make some of the big cuts that other organizations had to do. We did have to have some cuts in our salaries, but we decided to keep everybody together and pivot together and go through this crisis together. So I think that helped us to listen a little bit more and craft a new line of work to make sure that we are really building up a platform to continue to build this culture together, even though there's people in Tequila, Jalisco, and in Mexico City, in Guadalajara, in Florida, in Texas, in California. We're really trying to keep the structure in place where we are staying together in a functional, effective way. And I think that there's also a certain level of trust. People are working from home, and we are, the level of work that we've been able to produce is great. But if someone in our team is actually right now working in one place or in another place because they're going to see a family member or whatever the personal circumstances are, I'm less worried about that and more worried about people actually being motivated to stay and really be part of the team. Because I also think that people during this crisis are also looking in a mirror and really taking big personal and professional decisions of what they want to do with their lives, with their family, with their careers, and so on. So I think that we just try to do the best we can and stay as close as we can. And really hopefully that these learnings that we had from the survey, we're going to do our second survey now to see how much we have advanced and learn a little bit more about the working from home situation to decide whether or not we're going to reopen our offices, but who really wants to go back to those offices. Because not everybody has the luxury of having an extra room at home or whatever the conditions are. So we just want to make sure that we're staying really close, we're listening, and we are adjusting as we go through this crisis.
And you, thank you, all 3 of you, for that, because I think it's really helpful as whether you work in a big company or a small company, or you're leading your own, it's really helpful to understand, again, how you have these touch points with your staff. A little goes a long way. We've heard that throughout our careers, and it actually, if people would just listen to that, it really makes a difference. I want to get into partnerships, and I'll just remind the audience that if you have questions, I know there are a few, I've got those, put them in the chat. So please, don't be shy. Bertha, I'm going to go right into, because we've talked a lot about digital and this idea of remote work, but partnerships. You relied heavily on partners. And when you think of partnerships in your world, it's like you mentioned, it's the hotels, it's the restaurants, it's the bars, but those being shut down throughout, a significant part of this time, what you launched a few really cool initiatives in your cocktails program, but how important through this pandemic and as we all emerge from this, depending on how long it continues to last, how important are partnerships for your business?
Very important. Partnerships is what brings our product to life. And without partnerships, I don't think I would be sitting here talking to all of you. So having a community that you work with, that you create with, that you engage with is really what, I mean, at least in the spirits industry, that's what all we have. When I walk into a bar and I see a back bar and I see all these bottles, I see all these people that I know behind each one of those bottles. It's about people, and it's about their partners, and it's about how we co-create and how we engage and how we bring this dream to life of the spirits industry. So for us, one of them was immediately we created this grant for bartenders called Cocktails at Home. That was very simple, but we knew so many of our friends that were furloughed, or that their restaurants were closed, or their bars, or their hotels. So we wanted to do something within our means that actually meant something. So we created this program and have worked with 200 different bartenders throughout Mexico and the US, and which they did, individual 2 to 3 cocktails each, and they post them online, and then we rebrand them, and it just became, there was so many other platforms to support bartenders, but what they loved is that this was going directly to them.
Right.
So that gave us really great feedback and a way to actually thank in our own way and within our own means. We also have our cash challenges today, but it was, we're starting our second chapter with that, and we're really excited about it. We also, through our one-click to purchase from our website, we work with Reserve Bar, and for a month of our sales, we donated part of our proceeds to the USBG, which is a US Bartender Guild.
Wow.
Which is also very important. And then the next month, we partnered with a James Beard Award Foundation. They started an initiative called Open for Good, that they're raising capital to support all this, to give grants to all these restaurants, bars, and establishments that are really like going through this motion of, not being able to operate. So those are some of the examples of some of the initiatives that we've done, and that we're still trying to figure out what else we can do within our means to be able to really be part of the community. That's who we are. That's what brings meaning to our business, and that's why the business is so special and so endearing. So we're proud of our community, and we look forward to continue to work really closely together to keep the drumbeat hopefully going for everyone.
Plus, you're taking a long-term view, which we all should do as leaders of companies, right? You're not thinking, as you just mentioned and alluded to, around there are challenges, there's financial challenges, but these are not only your customers, they're your partners, and taking that long-term approach that you're going to get through this together and supporting each other as a community, not one versus the other, is so important to your business.
Yeah. I mean, many of our partner restaurants in Mexico started doing baskets for home. So we immediately, participated in that. We participated in some of the top rated restaurants in the world. They're in the part of the top 50. And immediately, like once we started discussing, we were like, of course, we'll be part of those baskets immediately. And even if the price was not exactly where it should, it was more about really keeping those restaurants actually going. And the happiness that people receive by buying this food to eat at home, when people are cooking at home, everybody got tired of cooking at home. I mean, not everybody's a great cook. So being able to order from a restaurant and get it delivered to your house, and it has either paired with a wine or paired with a tequila and other things that came in those baskets, became this joyous moment in people's weekends or people's weeks. That and it also enabled many of those restaurants to keep a revenue stream going, not at the level that they needed it, but keep the operating revenue going. So we just kept ourselves really close to the ground and listening and being able to to stay close to the people that have brought so much meaning into our business.
Yeah, it's if everyone remembers that first month, everybody was, Instagramming everything that they were making every day, and now that's all gone away. It's been 4 months. Everyone's like, all right, no more food pictures. But also, Bertha, that brings sort of, again, for those, not that everyone in Mexico doesn't drink your tequila already, but it's a new opportunity for a customer acquisition too, right? And new customers and new engagement, regardless of the restaurant. It was a new way to get a product in the hands of a consumer.
Yeah, I think that, we are all at home. So we are very selective of what we're bringing to our homes. Mm-hmm. So we saw that rather than it being more of a challenge, we saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
To connect with people and bring something new that's, a genuine story of our company, and use the B2C platforms to be able to put ourselves out there. We used direct mailing. We used our personal contacts. We used everything that we had in our chest to be able to create that drumbeat both in Mexico and the US. And we're still using that. We're all still very deep in the forest with where we are right now with this crisis. But we're really turning every rock to try and find opportunity where we can.
I think that's so important for any entrepreneurs out there or anyone that's leading sales in particular.
I don't know if I got stuck.
Wendy, I know particularly to Piermont, establishing and working with partners is critical to, as you continue to build, not only for you as the company, but for your clients.
Yeah. So for us, it's a couple of different levels, right? So one, as you pointed out, for the bank. So for us to be able to continue to support clients, especially when things are being shut down, is like appraisal companies, the law firms. Are they up and running? Can they keep pace with us at the same speed, right? And often in a crisis environment, everybody wants it done yesterday because it's that much needed. So that's one level. Continue to make sure that our partners that are very much part of the steps that, that's required to get the financing to the clients are operational, making sure they're there. Then there is the community partners. For example, the CDFIs, how can we be helpful to them? Because they're out there giving out the $10,000 loans, the $5,000 loans, right? Where really not for banks to handle, but how can we be helpful to them? And what kind of partnership can we actually form during this time that normally we don't even think of? Then it's really, platforms like yours, for example, from an outreach standpoint, and may not necessarily equate to actually banking business. But for us, it is very much also about how do we bridge everyone through this crisis, right? Whether they're clients or not, whether they're prospects or not. So for example, when it came to that PPP loan process, we were actually probably one of the handful of banks that were handling non-existing clients. So that was so important to us that we're able to help non-existing clients versus just focusing on the bank clients. So for us, the partnership translates into a pretty complex web of sort of that ecosystem that's for the world of commercial banking.
Yeah.
So,
people often think when you use the term partnership or collaboration that there's always that, oh, they're a competitor or they may not be. How do we find our way through that? And Kristy, you and I talk about this every single time we text or talk. And actually, when I launched Luminary, Kristy was one of the first people that I'd met in this new world. And when I started to talk about my business, the first thing everyone would say is, oh, you mean you'll be a competitor to Ellevate? And we sat down in person, again, Luminary wasn't even launched yet. And we said, wait a second, we can partner here, we can collaborate, we can actually help more if we work together. And Wendy, that's what you're doing. Bertha, that's what you're doing. Kristy, I know that is so core to Ellevate and part of your mission. So how important have partnerships been throughout this and as you go into the rest of 2020 and 2021?
And they're incredibly important. Businesses today have a deeper sense of purpose. I hope businesses do. I believe that that's where we're going, is really thinking about multiple stakeholders, thinking about your impact on the world. And in order to do that, it's really about that partnership. It's about the alignment, the rising tides lift all boats, Specifically for us in our industry, we know that women have been more severely economically impacted during this time. They've lost their jobs, they're taking on extra work in the home. There are a higher percentage of frontline workers. And so if we want to ensure that the numbers don't slide backwards, we want to ensure that we're really supporting our customers, then we can't do that alone. We're doing that with Luminary, we're doing that with other partners. Many of our partners are smaller. Their businesses are more vulnerable. We cannot allow women-owned businesses to fail during this time. So it becomes more about, arms together, let's create greater change, let's do more together. I also, think about a lot of the programs that have come out of companies during this time. Bertha mentioned some around how we're really looking to support those that have been impacted during COVID and these times. And so Ellevate, we created an Elevate Her Forward fellowship program. When you look at the numbers, 60 to 80% of opportunities come from the people in your network. And so for us, it was really, how do we open our doors, ensure we can get as many women access to our network, access to those opportunities. We have over 250 women who have gained Ellevate memberships due to the fellowship program. More than half lost their jobs due to COVID. More than half were making under minimum wage. And so it's like, we want to change this. But our program had an impact because of our partners who believed in it too, who shared it with their communities, who shared it far and wide. And that's really, if you can't just do things in an echo chamber, to really see the world change, to see business evolve, to see us being humans and humanity that's supporting one another to navigate these times. It's about those partnerships, and they're meaningful. And I'm so grateful that we have Luminary as one of our partners. I'm looking forward to creating more magic and impact with you in the future.
Yeah, I part of what we do is create, we have so many partnerships, Ellevate being one of them, Worth being another, and the more people we can support, help, and create impact, and then they pay it forward, it's so important. And certainly as we look at the numbers that are disproportionately affecting women across, whether you're a small business owner or entrepreneur in the corporate workforce, it's staggering to see, I call it this she session, right? What's happening. And again, nothing against the men. I'm a huge supporter of men. They've been a huge supporter of me, and we welcome them at Luminary. But there is, these statistics that we see, as Kristy just alluded to. I think Bertha and Wendy, as you said, people are looking in the mirror. Is this what they want to do for the rest of their lives? Is there better something out there? There's a question that came in. I have a couple of questions that just came in that said, obviously with everything going on, curious to know what the panelists have learned or relearned about themselves in the first half of 2020 that have made you a better colleague in your business. And feel free, whoever wants to jump in. Great question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I have to think about that. I think, one thing is I've realized that there's always room for being more empathetic, right? Because crisis brings out the extreme side of us, right? In terms of the good and the bad, the strength and the weakness. So I think there's always room as a leader to be more empathetic. There's the business that we've got to worry about. That tends to be a little bit more black and white, right? Keeping it profitable, keeping the business alive. But then there's, again, that human component to it. And that becomes very, very great. And this is the time where the empathy trumps everything else, in my view, in terms of how in problem solving, in tackling an issue. And for me personally, it's, interestingly, because I had career with larger institutions, as part of succession planning, they conduct all these tests, personality tests on you, right? As part of the partnership promotion, for example, at Deloitte, they conduct a 6 month worth of, I call it a beauty pageant process of assessing you as a person, as a potential candidate to be a leader. So, I've been told that I'm an extreme introvert. Then I realized that, even extreme introverts needs people, needs socialization. That feeds, basic human needs, right? That interaction and that support is critical, and that we should never underestimate the value and the criticality of that touch, the outreach, right? Just a simple phone call, a text message. So, and that needs to be integrated into the way that we lead an organization, regardless of industry. And that should be integrated into literally the everyday fabric of how we communicate with people. So, you know, to me, it's just, you know, reminding us that we're human before we are a CEO.
Yes. Bertha.
I think that, I mean, I completely agree with Wendy on empathy. I think that is something really important during this time, that we're not seeing it in all the layers of the world that we're experiencing today. I'm not going to go into any polemic conversation, but I do think that also things that you thought you were not able to change because that's how your business kind of like pillars were done. It's that the element of surprise of actually again one more time being able to just do something different, and the freshness and the impact that has in the energy of the business is something that I want to just keep and put it in a bottle and open it up when I need it again, because I think that you know, that's something that continues to surprise me. You know, I think when you're building a business, you have to continue to have a sense of surprise in what you're doing. In the actions that you take, if they become the same and the same, it just becomes like this rusty situation that you don't know how to get out of. And that crisis kind of like catapulted us into, oh yeah, like we can't do that anymore, so we have to do something else.
Right.
And I think if you have spoken to me 8 months ago, or 21 in my team 8 months ago, that we were going to be doing things the way we are today, would have said, oh, no way. We're going to have to continue to do this and do that and do this and do that. So I think that, just, you know, trying to surf that wave when it comes and do it the best that you can, I think is something that I continue to try and keep myself fresh, and so that we can have a fresh perspective as how we're moving into the future.
Great. Kristy.
Say I've learned to lean into the unknown. I am someone who likes to know things, who likes to plan. You know, oftentimes as a CEO, especially as your company grows, you're focused more on where you're going to be 2 years from now or 3 years from now. We already have the plans for today. And this is a time of unknown. And personally, you know, our school's opening in the fall. Where are we going to be in 3 months? What's happening in life? It has been a roller coaster. And I'll be honest, for the first couple of months, I mean, it was so hard to know how to navigate it as a parent, as a person, as a business leader, how to see what was in the future and plan and move towards that. And so for me, it's really about just accepting, you know, there's a lot of unknowns, but what are the things I care about? What is the vision I have? And how do I keep moving towards that? How do I keep supporting my teams? How do I have clarity around what's most important? And that has really helped center me and helped to motivate me to take on that challenge and that journey.
We're going to wrap it up, but there was a question that came in earlier about how do you hire and train new team members and indoctrinate the culture of the firm? The three things that you all just touched on are the leadership from the top, right? It's that top down, and everything that you just talked about, really all of the examples, the traits, the empathy, the communication, transparency, that's what you're indoctrinating as the culture of the firm. And this idea of camaraderie and working together, entrepreneurial spirit, let's get it done. We don't have to think of the old ways, we can think of new ways. So Kristy, Wendy, Bertha, amazing. We could sit here for another couple of hours. I know I could. Thank you so much. I know that the Worth team put both the websites and the social handles of each of the companies, as well as Worth and Luminary, in the chat. So please take the opportunity, if you don't know these amazing leaders, to do so. And I'll hand it back to Juliet.
Thank you, Kate, and Wendy and Kristy and Bertha. Thank you so much for such a open and necessary conversation. I agree so much with the talk on empathy and collaboration, and I've certainly appreciated it when people have done that personal outreach to me over the last few months. I think it's so important. And I think, if anything, I've kind of held on to purpose and mission and the reason why we exist even more. I think everything around it can be totally chaotic, but I think it just helps you root more and more to kind of what your core purpose is. A huge thank you to Kate and the team at Luminary for partnering on this series with Women and Worth, and most importantly, thanks to all of you who joined us today and for the great questions. We hope you enjoyed it. Please do share any feedback with us. We'd love to hear your comments and any topics that you'd like us to cover in our future Lonely CEO series. You can email us at community@worth.com. And join us this Thursday at 4 p.m. ET for the next session of the Next Normal series on how the WNBA is turning adversity into opportunity, and how basketball is vying for equality, and how 2020 has affected women in sports, with Kathy Engelbert, Commissioner of the WNBA. You can register online, at worth.com/events, and as well as sign up for our bi-weekly Women and Worth newsletter, and we'll also include all these links in our thank you email following this event. Thank you so much. In the meantime, stay well, be kind, stay healthy, keep collaborating, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.